Under the moonlight, we see a woman's chest pierced by a knight's sword. The woman declared that for eternity, none of them shall escape from those shackles. Forevermore, they shall be trapped within restless times, writhing in pain and despair from the curse she leaves them with. We now switch to another woman, who is telling someone that they will live only to be loved. Henceforth, you will share the love you have received, becoming a kind and compassionate person evermore, and you will treat me with even more kindness. Then you will come to like me, she said. The boy responded that it was nonsense, saying that wasn't a curse. The woman laughed and told him she couldn't cast something like a curse anyway. He remarked that she didn't even seem like she was attempting one. He mentioned that she had told him a certain witch left behind a curse upon her death long ago and guessed that not every witch could do something like that. She laughed and suggested he ask a witch about it. He replied that was why he was asking her and told her to stop acting clueless. She petted the dog and told him she didn't know what he was talking about. He then said that she was a witch and she asked why he thought so. He explained that the trees had been getting chopped down like grass for a while and accused her of being responsible. She denied it and asked if it wasn't because he had gotten really strong. He asked if she took him for an idiot and demanded she explain herself if she truly wasn't a witch. He asked why the trees were being cut so easily, and why she visited the mountain so frequently despite being a stranger there. Before he could ask his next question, she told him she wouldn't be able to come there for some time. Surprised, he asked how long she meant. She laughed and said he was starting to miss her already. He turned away, insisting he was not, and then told her he was going home and said goodbye. As he walked away, he thought about how the third thing he wanted to ask was why he always had nightmares on the days he met her. We then see him running home with his dog, Cole, and he told Cole to go knock over his dad. The dog rushed over, pushing his father to the ground. The boy then asked his father why he was dazing around, and his father replied it was because of him. His father explained that his smart son learned his trade and took all his work from him, and the boy sarcastically said he must be proud. His father said, "Proud, my butt," and added that he was bored out of his mind. His mother then approached and said he shouldn't be bored at all, mentioning she was getting tired over here. She told her son that his father always talked about how proud he was of him whenever he was gone, and the two laughed. We now see them eating. He told them that the stranger was there again today, and his father said that must be why his work ended early. He asked what his father meant. His father replied that he always talked about her being strange, but from what he said, didn't it seem like she was helping him with his work? He said it was weird in its own way, that someone he barely knew was suddenly helping him for no reason at all, and wondered if she had some ulterior motives. His father then told him that he had heard about witches when he was deployed in battle. He said that witches have the ability to produce rain fire from the skies and overturn the earth. He asked his son why someone like that would even play around with him. He said he had no idea if she was playing around or if it would be terrifying later on. He then said that she told him that witches can cast curses too, and mentioned a certain curse that has continued to this day, even though several centuries have passed. His mother was surprised and asked what kind of curse it could be, and he couldn't give an answer. Later that night, as he slept, he was having the same repeating nightmare. In the dream, he meets someone armored who slowly turns their head and walks toward him across a horrible sight. As the knight approached him, he took a stance and was ready to attack him. As he got stabbed in the chest, he screamed in pain and the dog started barking. He thought about how the nightmare always ends with vivid pain and is always the same. He then told the dog to calm down as everyone was sleeping. Seeing that the dog wasn't stopping, he decided to go outside. Enoch thought about how that dream must be because of the witch's curse and wondered why that stranger cast such a curse on him. He then wondered if it was really something she even did. He thought about the witch's curses and said he should have been more specific back when he asked her to show him a curse. He then started to remember when him and the woman were under the tree. She asked him if he came out again because he couldn't sleep. He told her it was because he had a certain dream again and asked why she hasn't gone back yet. She said it was because she always meets him there at night. He then asked what happened to the people who were cursed. She replied that he seemed very interested in that story. She then asked him if this was a good place, mentioning that there was a vast plain, a high mountain peak, and a lush and fragrant forest. He asked why she was changing the topic, but she continued speaking. She said not all the world is as good a place. There are some places where wars erupt even now. She told him that long ago, a war took the lives of countless people, and one who became a victim of the war left behind a curse in her last moments. Due to that curse, those who roamed the battlefield could not take their armor off for all eternity. They tried everything possible to free themselves from the curse but couldn't escape it. Even in their death, their lives continued, trapped in the armor forever. They slowly went mad, and in the end, they forgot everything. All they could do was wander around forgetting everything. He then asked her if they killed people because they went insane from the curse. She said they should stop talking there and reminded him that it was only a story after all. We now see Enoch under the tree. He told Cole that they should head back since she wouldn't return for some time. Suddenly, something caught Cole's attention, and he started barking. As he barked, a figure appeared behind them in the dark. Enoch called out, asking if it was the stranger. As the person emerged, Enoch was shocked to see that it was a knight. He remembered the woman's words. She said they had forgotten everything. Their names, their families, their friends, their loves, and their purpose. All they could do was wander aimlessly. The knight then prepared to slash Cole with his sword. Enoch called out for his dog, and as the knight slashed, he dived and managed to save Cole. He picked up the dog and began to run away. As they ran, Enoch thought that it must be a cursed one, a wandering knight. The curse made them unable to take off their armor eternally, and trapped in their armor, they sacrificed many people, venting their anger on the curse, wandering wherever their feet led them, killing as they desired. Enoch tripped and fell. As Enoch got up, Cole barked at the cursed knight who was chasing behind them. As Enoch looked at the knight, he realized that it was really coming after him. Remembering that his parents were still at home, he knew he couldn't lead the knight there. He thought he had to stop it and take its sword. He dashed towards the knight, realizing that he has to stop it there. The knight slashed at him, but Enoch managed to dodge. The knight then knocked him in the head with the hilt of his sword. Realizing that he couldn't go unconscious, Enoch grabbed onto the sword before he was knocked out. The knight pulled the sword away from him and kicked him down to the floor, then started walking towards him slowly. Enoch tried to get up, almost unconscious, and grabbed onto the knight's leg. Cole then jumped towards the knight, and together they managed to topple it. Enoch reached for the knight's knife and stabbed the knight in its eye. The knight screamed in pain, and Enoch thought he had managed to kill it. To his surprise, the knight grabbed the knife and pulled it out. He remembered the woman saying that they tried everything to free themselves from the curse but couldn't escape it even in death, continuing their lives trapped in the armor forever. Enoch was shocked to see the knight get back to its feet. It raised its sword, and Enoch realized that when the knight took a stance, it meant he would be killed by that sword. He shouted for his mom and dad to run away, screaming with all his strength, hoping his parents would hear his plea. Yet, he charged at the knight without any hint of fleeing. Needless to say, he couldn't stop the knight. The knight dragged him and dropped him on the floor. While he lay there, the knight stood over his mother, while she screamed for him to get up, but he was unresponsive. His memories became fragmented after falling unconscious. We now see the knight aiming its sword at Enoch's heart. The knight laughed as it pierced his chest. When Enoch opened his eyes again, he was seated on a bed and wondered if it had all been a dream. Looking at his hand, he was surprised to see the cut. He then rushed outside, screaming for his mother, father, and his dog. As he exited, he saw a woman and a knight outside. He paused, seeing blood on the floor, and started to shake. The knight then told him to pull himself together. The knight had a knife in his chest and told Enoch that he'd wait until then, and they could talk afterward. Enoch froze for a moment, then rushed toward the knight. The knight pushed him to the floor, calling him a fool and telling him he was the one who saved his life. Enoch then asked where the cursed knight was, and the woman said they chased the bastard away. As he wondered who the people were, he saw Cole's body and asked what happened to him. The knight said the dog was biting on a breastplate, and he put it on him. The woman then told him that when they arrived, he was the only one breathing. She said as for why the dog was biting on the breastplate, it was a mystery to her. She added that if it weren't for the borrowed power of the curse, Enoch wouldn't have been able to survive. The knight then told him that even though it was a crude breastplate, he couldn't escape the curse once he wore the armor, and that he would never be able to take off that armor, meaning he wouldn't be able to die even if he wanted to. He then asked Enoch what he thought and if they had meddled unnecessarily. Enoch then said his tears wouldn't come out because that laughter wouldn't leave his head. The knight said it seemed like he wanted something, and Enoch said, "Revenge." We now get a flashback of when the knight was about to kill Enoch. After the knight pierced Enoch's chest and stood, clutching the eye that Enoch had stabbed, a fireball flew behind the knight. A woman emerged, telling the knight to back off. The knight turned to face her, and she told him to get away from the kid as it no longer concerned him. She said she was a witch from the Blue Spider, and if he still wished to fight, she would not hold back. The knight accompanying the woman said he would be the knight's opponent. She asked him if he saw something, and the knight asked if she meant the family slaughtered before them. She said no and was surprised as she saw a figure hovering over Enoch's body. She said she saw it and the figure was stretching its arm out to Enoch. We now switch scenes and we see Enoch rummaging through a forest. The knight told the woman, called Emma, that she didn't have the privilege to waste this much time on the kid. She said she knew and asked if he really planned to search the entire forest. She then shouted out to Enoch, telling him they should talk for a bit. Seeing that Enoch didn't respond, she wondered if he didn't hear her. The knight told her that it was the nature of revenge, that it blinds the eyes and deafens the ears, and that it would be hard to convince him no matter what she said. The knight started to walk away, and she asked where he was going. He told her that the ground was soaked with the boy's blood and that when he came back to his senses, she should make sure to cauterize the bleeding with fire. Later on, we see Enoch collapse to the floor, and Emma ran over to help him. By a fireplace, Emma held a heated knife in her hand and told him to prepare himself. As she pressed the knife onto the wound, Enoch screamed, startling Emma. After the treatment was done, she told him it was just temporary first aid and that he needed to get professional help and take it easy, and he thanked her. She then asked if he wanted to come with them. She said that if he had nowhere to go, she could introduce him to a hospital and a place to work. She mentioned that they had a place they needed to go to urgently, so it would be good if he could decide now. Enoch got up and started walking away. She asked where he was going. Enoch told her that, despite being in a hurry, they helped bury his family and said he was thankful for her offer of help. However, he couldn't go because he still had something he must do. She asked him if it was revenge, and he froze. She then asked if he wanted to take revenge on that night. Enoch told her that revenge didn't cut it. He said he was going to catch that knight, impale him with a sword for every word, cut off his hands and feet, and make him squirm around. He said the knight would scream until his throat exploded. Then he'd carve out his eyes and chew on them finally until he begged to be killed. Emma thought Enoch was scary. She thought about how she needed to persuade him but couldn't say a thing. She imagined how the conversation would have gone. Enoch saying, "I'll kill that bastard." And she would have asked, "How?" Then she would have told him, "You can't kill someone in armor, kid." She realized she had to say something, at least until the knight returned. She ended up telling him good luck instead of stopping him. Enoch then told her that he hoped she reached her destination safely. She told him to wait and let him know that they would help him. She said that whether it was just revenge or something more significant, they could help. She then thought about the one who sets the rules of death and wondered if she saw the god of death descend on earth, enacting death by the set rules. As it shed tears, Emma was confused by the scene before her and wondered if the god of death was shedding tears over a mere human's death. She realized she had to find out how this kid was related to the god of death. Emma then told him that she was a blue spider witch and said that they were carrying supplies to the base when they came across him. She showed him what they were transporting, a holy relic. She explained that they had to move quickly but couldn't just pass by that scene. She asked if he really didn't know anything and if he had ever heard of the witch coven known as the Blue Spider. She told him that in the sky, the white bird moves for justice. In the trees, the blue spider moves for exploration. And on the ground, the red snake moves for profit. She said the witch coven is split into 3 houses, each with its own purpose. Enoch then told her to wait a minute and said that this had nothing to do with him. She smiled and said that the point is they need to hurry and get going. Emma then suddenly broke a twig, surprising Enoch, who noticed the fire suddenly went out. Emma told him that it didn't just go out. Someone extinguished it. She explained that they must leave before the tracker from the red snake, who wants the relic, catches up to them. A woman then appeared, addressing Emma. Emma chuckled and said, "It's been a while, Lita. How are you doing?" Lita responded that she was not well, and as she tied the knot a spell activated causing the ground to give way beneath them, and Enoch fell below. The knight then appeared, telling Lita to leave. Lita then started to twist her hair. Emma then instructed the knight not to fight her, but to keep her from tying the knot. As Lita tied the knot with her hair, there was an explosion, and as they jumped in the air, Lita remarked on the fun friend Emma had made. Emma begged her to let them talk things out. Lita pointed her weapon at Emma's head and told her to speak. Emma explained that the witch who possesses the holy relic gains the ability to see the rules of death, confirming that the rumor was true. With the relic, she could see the god of death. Lita dismissed this. She told Emma that she should say that she will return it. We now switch to Enoch as he got up off the ground. He saw a pack of dead wolves who were impaled by swords with footsteps leading away from the bodies. Back to Emma and Lita. The knight slashed Lita's weapon in 2. Some leaves were in the air, and as they fell towards Lita, she jumped away as they pierced the ground. Lita asked Emma what she had done. Emma told her that she just made the leaves a bit heavier. Lita, feeling threatened, asked if she was trying to kill her and shouted that she wasn't that serious. The knight then asked if Lita was considering talking now. Emma told the knight the item was with Enoch but that the ground collapsed and he fell down the slope. The knight said, "Is that so?" Lita then asked the knight why he was walking around with a knife stuck in his chest, wondering if he was crazy or if it was fashion. The knight explained that there was no proper sheath and said that he would go to the boy. As he was leaving, he wished Emma good luck. Emma was surprised, realizing that the knight had been listening to her and Enoch's conversation from earlier. Lita then told Emma that this was not something to overlook. Emma, confused, said that the item was with the child. Lita insisted it was a lie and said that it wasn't a problem that could be avoided with tricks. She asked if Emma didn't think the entire red snake house could move. Emma then said she wanted to make a suggestion. We now see the knight approaching where the dead wolves were. The knight asked Enoch if he still didn't understand what it means to wear armor. He said, "If life is a journey on a long road, we must walk it forever." He asked if Enoch was satisfied filling that path with revenge and hatred. Enoch just picked up a sword and started to walk away. The knight then asked him, "If you could kill your enemy, what would you fill the vast time that follows?" Following the bloody footprints, Enoch saw that they led to a cave. He said he finally found it. As he observed the tracks, he noticed multiple footsteps there. The knight came up from behind and covered Enoch's mouth. He asked Enoch if he had chased the knights with the sword they had discarded and if he thought he could fight them with it. He warned Enoch that the cave was filled with a wandering order of knights starving for blood, not just his enemies. He explained that more crazed knights might emerge, and asked what Enoch thought he could do. He told him that he would only act as a log for the knights to test their swords on. A noisy log that screams in pain but cannot die. After screaming, what would Enoch do? Beg to be killed? But he couldn't die, and that would annoy the knights too, as they crave blood but they can't taste it. The knight spoke about a baptism, a cruel ritual where the undying are continuously stabbed and slashed until they spoil alive, driving them mad. He explained that these knights call it a baptism and asked if that was what Enoch wanted, to receive baptism and become like them. The knight then bluntly told Enoch that seeking revenge was futile as he couldn't do anything. Instead, the knight offered Enoch a chance to become his squire, to learn the sword, the logic of the world, and to live his life. Enoch said he understood, and shouted that he would become the knight's squire, learn the sword, understand the world, and live his life. The knight warned him that his reply was too loud, but Enoch retorted that it should make the knights emerge from the cave. The knight called him stupid and asked if he truly thought he could defeat a knight. Enoch responded that there was only one thing to do. The knight told Enoch to stand back. He thought it was odd as it seemed like he was aiming for something. As the crazed knight started to exit the cave, seeing the one he stabbed, Enoch shouted, "I'm here, bastard!" The knight realized that Enoch was luring the crazed knight, planning to use him as a pawn to handle the rest. The knight decided to see what Enoch could do. The knight Enoch had stabbed in the eye earlier dashed towards him. Enoch then tried to stab the knight, but the knight dodged. He grabbed his blade and hit the knight on the head with the hilt of the sword. As the knight was dazed, Enoch removed the cloth from over his breastplate and declared that now he couldn't die until he killed the knight. The crazed knight chuckled and slashed at Enoch, who managed to dodge. Enoch then tried to trip the knight by hooking his ankle with the sword hilt, but the knight lifted his leg in time, causing Enoch to miss. The knight hit Enoch to the floor and took out his knife, aiming to stab Enoch in the eye. The blade of the knife was then engulfed in light and started to disintegrate. Emma had saved him. The knight kicked the cursed knight off Enoch and told him that he had ended pathetically and couldn't do anything. Enoch then jumped onto the cursed knight with a stick in his hand and shouted for Emma to help. Emma casted a spell, and Enoch used the stick to mark the cursed knight's helmet. The knight pulled Enoch off and told Emma to take him and leave. Seeing the mark on the cursed knight, the knight wondered if this was Enoch's plan from the start. As Emma took him away, Enoch shouted that from this moment on, wherever the crazed knight went, he would be called the X-marked knight. He declared that the people of the world who saw him would be his guides, and he would forever chase that mark, no matter where it was. He said the mark was proof that he was being chased by him, the one who took his right eye. That was all Enoch could do for his revenge, to remember that day in the future. Realizing there was nothing more he could do, Enoch wept. Emma held a stick in the river and activated a spell. She then took Enoch and started to run across the water. Once they reached the other side, they approached Leda. As Emma placed Enoch onto the horse, she thanked Leda and assured her that she would repay the debt. Leda was about to say something, but Emma interrupted her. "Don't worry," she said. "I'll figure it out, and there won't be a problem." Leda smiled and said, "There won't not be a problem, not with the red snake house involved." As they rode off on their horses, Leda told Emma to be careful. We now switch scenes and some people were speaking. One of them said, "I suppose this place, Tav Castle, will be our grave. We protected this place with that same amount of determination." Another person said, "Even so, check out the surroundings. Our foe is right under their noses preparing for their last attack." Another man said that over half of their remaining troops are injured, but the White Bird only sent 2 people as reinforcements. The man then wondered where the other person was. The person from White Bird said that they should calm down as they won't need 2 people to protect the castle. We now see a woman with a bow and arrow. She had a flame on the arrow. She then aimed at a stick with a cloth on the top. Then she fired. The arrow hit the cloth, and as it hit the castle wall, it exploded. A bald man then told her to take one more shot. Another man announced that the wall is soon to fall, so they should prepare to lay siege. The bald man told the woman that things are going quite conveniently and asked if there isn't any magic that skips this and just annihilates the enemies. She then said that it's not magic, it's power gifted to her by her god. She said that witches merely twist rules, and God doesn't allow them to twist the lives of living beings. The bald man then said, "Oh God, you provide assistance, yet it's offered ambiguously. and said that there's some worth in having a witch. As they've finally conquered Tav Castle, he said that with this expansion, the entire country will likely be engulfed in war, and she'll earn far more money. She said that either outcome was fine. She then wondered if the person from the White Birdhouse will just continue to be an observer. We now see a woman standing at the castle, and she removes her cloak and throws it. As the other arrow was approaching the castle, she held out her hand, and as she did, she caused the arrow to explode before it reached the castle. This surprised the witch and the bald man. We now see that the woman turned into a giant. The invaders couldn't believe that the white birds were hiding something this unbelievable. The other person from the White Birdhouse told the man that this was a power that only that woman can use. Then told him that this was Chloe and she can change the situation by herself. Chloe then started to approach the invaders, and as she was about to smash them, she intentionally missed and hit the ground. She then shrunk back down and put her cloak back on. Chloe then told them that the white bird will no longer tolerate these attacks. We now see Chloe returning to her colleague. She told Dana that they'll retreat when dawn breaks. She told Dana that there was a witch with them, and it seemed like they made a deal. Dana then said that she was right to intervene and asked if there was anything else. Chloe told her that she doesn't think there's anything more for her to do. She then said that she wants to see that child and said that he might still be waiting for her under the tree. Dana said, "Okay," and told her to be blessed. Chloe then said that he'll definitely be waiting for her, as they always meet there at night. She told Dana that he resembles her. She said that he was kind-hearted and watches over his dog well, although he grumbles to her all the time. We now switch back to the confrontation between the knights. The knight manages to take a few of the cursed ones down. He then tried to stab the knight who was marked by Enoch in his other eye, but the cursed knight covered his eye before the sword could get there. Seeing its reaction, the knight said it was laughable and asked, "After losing one eye to a cocky boy, is it a waste to lose the other?" Seeing that the cursed knight was turning away, he asked if it was planning to run and told him that it fits him perfectly. He said that it'd be good for him to remember that boy, since he has sins to pay for. As he jumped away from the other cursed knights, he wondered if they crossed the river and realized that he no longer has to deal with these guys anymore. We now switch scenes, and we see Emma reaching Enoch's home. Seeing the graves, she was surprised and screamed out for Enoch. As she did, she transformed and saw the group of knights. She angrily went over to them, shouting, "How dare they?" and attacked them. The knight wondered if the time has finally come. Chloe then shrunk and appeared before the knight who saved Enoch and punched the knight away. She then approached the cursed knights and casted a spell on them which blasted them away. She then approached the knight she punched away and grabbed the knife that was in his chest. The knight told her to unhand him, and she told him to shut up and said she'll pull out the knife and stab it in his head. As she pulled out the knife, we see that the blade was glowing. Chloe's hand was then blown off, and as the knight got up, he said that Chloe was more arrogant than he thought. He went on to say that though witches are granted powers that can defy the principles of the world, there is one domain that even witches are not granted power over. He said that even a witch cannot control and shape something that possesses the soul. He continued and said, "Yet you become big as a mountain, teleport in the blink of an eye, and are even able to recreate an arm that's been cut off." As the two clashed, he asked her to tell him what she sold her soul for. She then asked him what he did with the child, and he told her that he put the breastplate on him. This surprised her. He then said that the woman must have been the one that prepared the breastplate, revealing that he read the message written on the inner side of it. We now get a flashback to the moment the knight put the breastplate on Enoch. While Enoch's life was fading, he begged for his mom and dad to be saved. The knight told Chloe that even as he was dying, he just kept saying that, but it was already too late. She then asked him where Enoch was, and the knight asked if he was really that important to her, so important that she had to save him by making him wear the breastplate and receive the curse. He said that Enoch was now on a path he cannot turn back from, with shaking arms, rummaging through the woods and searching the entire forest all for revenge. He said that when he saw that, he realized something. He said for all eternity, Enoch will be in a never-ending fight all for the sake of revenge, and eventually, he'll go insane since that is the fate of those who receive the curse. He told her that whether she wants it or not, this was her responsibility to bear. As tears welled up in her eyes, she told him to hand Enoch over. The knight said that he had a duty as well and that he'll take the boy with him. Chloe pulled her hand away from the knight, and she told him that she will kill him. The knight told her that she knows she can't kill him. As he was about to pull the knife out, a woman appeared and told him to stop. The woman casted a spell and Chloe was engulfed by a bright light. We now see her standing in a field by herself. She then remembered her time with Cole. She told Cole that she was glad she could depend on him and asked if he liked Enoch too, and told him that she was depending on him. She told him that if something ever goes wrong while she's gone, he should take the breastplate to Enoch. We now switch scenes and we see Dana and Chloe. Chloe told Dana that some people have taken Enoch. She said it was a knight impaled with a knife and a witch who can stop time. Dana then asked her what happened, and Chloe told her that Enoch lost his whole family. She said they were good people. She said it happened while she was over here engaging in a war that meant nothing to her. Dana then told her to get it together as this wasn't meaningless. She said that by stopping this war, they were preventing the onset of many more wars. Chloe said that it doesn't matter and told her she was going to leave the white bird. She said the responsibility left for her now is to punish them. We now switch to Emma and Enoch. They were riding a horse. As Enoch opened his eyes, he got up and asked where they were. Emma told him to be careful and mentioned that he didn't wake up for a couple of days, so she thought he was dead. She said she was relieved that he's up now. Enoch then asked about the cursed knights, and Emma told him that the knight remained there and bought them some time, and she took the chance to escape with him. She then told him that it was going to be all right. Seeing Enoch's expression, she was nervous. As they traveled, Enoch then asked if the witches know how to kill those who have received the curse. He said that he stabbed the bastard in his eye with a dagger and thought it went through his head, but he just got right back up. He asked her how they undo the curse that doesn't let them die. She then told him that he should get some rest for now as they were almost at their destination. She then told him that she doesn't know much about the curse, but they might be able to find something when they get there. We now see Emma getting her cheek pinched by someone. Emma begged her to listen, but the woman said she didn't want to hear her nonsensical talk. She told her to cut the crap and come with her. As she was being dragged, she told Enoch to just wait a bit. As Enoch stood there, someone approached him and asked if it was real. The girl seemed excited and asked if the armor was real and if he was cursed and couldn't die. We now switch scenes and the woman was with Emma. She told Emma that she sent an outrageous letter and started to read it. Heard a rumor that the holy relic possessed by the red snake is being transported. I am of the opinion that we must confirm it with our own eyes. Will I be able to check if that holy relic can be stolen? I shall do whatever I can. Please expect great things. The woman then said that the part that was crossed out worried her, but seeing how Emma returned safely, she guessed she wasn't able to do anything. She then said she didn't know why she had such a stupid thought in mind and that if she meddled with the red snake like that, before she could finish, Emma took out the holy relic and said that she did do something. All the women were surprised. One of them said she was lying and asked how she managed to do it and what about the red snake. Emma said that they chased her and probably know that she was here now. The woman said she was crazy and that the fact that she was here right now made it everyone's responsibility. The old woman then said they need to come up with a plan soon. She then asked Emma why she decided to do this, what the reason was she decided to obtain this holy relic even while being chased by the red snake. Emma shouted that she couldn't contain her curiosity, shocking the woman. We now switch scenes and see a group of women. One of them said that the act was stupid even for a blue spider. Lita then said that it meant she had no intention of keeping the holy relic, and that's why she made the deal. We now see the moment when Emma and Lita were making the deal. Emma said that if Lita allowed her to study the holy relic, she would return it to her and share the results of her research for free. She said she wouldn't request anything in return for the information. Lita then asked her what she would gain from doing this, and Emma said it was for understanding. We now switch back to the women. One of them said that it wasn't a bad deal, even though they hadn't had any progress with the holy relic. The reason why they didn't ask for cooperation was because they wanted to possess the benefits of it exclusively. She then said that if all of Blue Spider becomes involved in this, they may be able to gain something even more out of it. Lita then told her there was one more thing. She said that Emma said that through the holy relic, she saw the god of death. The woman said that was interesting. Boulders are sturdy and heavy. Feathers are light and soft. We call those who have established these rules and facts of the world gods. We glorify the rules they have decided. That is why, like how Emma breaks twigs, others use their own methods to abide by those rules. The gods grant us the authority to twist the rules of the world. We see a skull unveiled. This was the holy relic of death. One of the women said that the outer appearance is indicative of the holy relic of death, even though it may just look like a skull. Another asked, "Well, was there anything special about it?" Emma said that she could see the god of death. This surprised them, and they asked how and wondered if they should try breaking it or lighting it on fire. The old woman shouted at them, calling them imbeciles, and said that was an item they had stolen, and told them they have to study it using non-destructive methods. Emma then asked if she wasn't curious as well. The woman said that even she knew it would be weird if she wasn't curious. However, she must always keep in mind the responsibility that comes with this. She said they can only manifest their powers in a way they know of and within the confines of a domain they have knowledge of. Thus, she must be thinking that if they were to know more about death, then they may be able to use their powers even in the domain of death. Emma said that was right and said they could find out why they die and what happens when they die, as that item could hold all the answers to death. If they understand it, they may be able to overcome death. The woman then asked why they must overcome death. She then said that in this world, there are beings who have already overcome death. Emma asked if she was talking about the roaming knights. The old woman then said that Emma knows what happens to them even though they are beyond death, and asked her if she wants that. She then asked if her desire to overcome death would be like that. Emma then asked the woman if she has never thought that death was irrational and unfair. The woman then cut her off before she could finish. She sighed and walked away from Emma while saying with the pursuit of understanding comes responsibility, especially for witches like them. As she looked at the holy relic, the old woman wondered if the god of death wanted them to reveal the rules he had established. She questioned if this was why he left them this relic, wanting them to be able to twist those rules as they wished. Just as she was about to touch the relic, someone called out to her and said that the mission corps from the Red Snake had come to see them. The elder told her to bring them in. We now see Enoch entering a room. As he walked, he asked what this place was. The girl told him to hurry and come over. As he followed behind her, he asked why she was bringing him all the way there. The girl then lit a wall torch, revealing one of the cursed knights there, which surprised Enoch. The girl then said he should take a look as there was someone wearing armor there too. She mentioned that it didn't respond even when the witches tried this and that, but if she brought someone who was wearing armor, maybe they would say something. Enoch told her that this was dangerous. The knight then looked up at Enoch's breastplate, broke free from its shackles, causing the girl to scream. Enoch told the girl that it was dangerous, so she should come to him. The knight then grabbed him by the neck and said, "The one who harvests? Have you met them before?" Enoch wondered what the hell he was blabbering about. The knight then chuckled and Enoch took a broken spear and stabbed the knight with it. As he pulled the spear out, he shouted that the knight shouldn't laugh like that, calling him a murderer. As he stabbed at the knight caught the spear and started to squeeze his neck tighter until he lost consciousness. We see the holy relic start to light up, and suddenly Enoch finds himself in a pitch-black room. His attention is caught by laughter, and as he turns to face it, he was shocked. The god of death then says, "Finally, you've come to me." We now switch back to the women. The woman from the Red Snake said that she was sorry they had to meet in such unsavory circumstances. She explained that they were there to take back the item that the Blue Spider House had stolen. The Blue Spider witches tried to deny that they stole anything, but the woman said that the elder should take responsibility. The elder then said that before that, she would like to talk about the item that Emma stole. She asked what exactly it was. The woman asked what she meant. The elder said she was talking about the weight of the issue. The woman asked what she meant again. The elder said that the weight of stealing a slice of bread versus a whole herd of horses cannot be the same, she said. She continued and said that from what they could tell, the item Emma stole was nothing but a simple skull. They couldn't confirm that it was actually a holy relic. The woman from the red snake house realized that the old woman was using her head. She then said to her that she was sure the elder knows as well that a way to prove the worth of a holy relic is still unknown. The elder agreed and said that's why, regarding this issue, they need a way to prove the item Emma stole is actually a holy relic. She said the warranted measures would change depending on what the item actually is. The woman from the red snake house then asked if the elder was okay with that assertion being reported to the chiefs and said she might end up creating a big issue out of something small. The elder said it was so they have a clear and fair way to settle this and said that the woman's executives probably want that as well. After all, it means that the Blue Spider House will uncover the secrets of a holy relic, something that the Red Snake House cannot do. The Red Snake House still couldn't fully discover the secrets of the holy relic. They didn't even ask for help to fully discover the secrets. Instead, they went as far as to hide the holy relic the best they could, because they didn't want to share the benefits that would come from uncovering its secrets. They're actively against sharing the benefits that would come from unraveling the secrets held by that holy relic. As the Red Snake House is keen on deals, they know they'd have to repay someone if they asked for help. But now that the Blue Spiders are involved, the excuse of making a settlement is reasonable. They had no reason to decline. The woman from the Red Snake House told the elder that it was fine with her. However, the investigation of the holy relic will be done at the Red Snake's residence, and they will be the ones to select the witches from the Blue Spider who will be sent to the Red Snake's residence as witnesses. The old woman said all right and told her to contact her chiefs and let them know which witches they select, and said that they would send them over as soon as possible. Emma was surprised that it worked. The woman then pointed and said that the elder, Emma, and the other 2 witches that were present will be the ones dispatched to the Red Snake residence. The elder was surprised, and then the woman from the Red Snake House said that the deadline was 2 years. Regardless of whether they are able to conclude it a holy relic or not, at the coming of the deadline, all of this shall be concluded. Also, they don't want information about the holy relic to be spread around. She added that they should swear to keep their mouths shut after learning the results of the investigation. We now switch back to Enoch and the god of death. Enoch asked what it was, and the god of death responded saying that Enoch was shaking, indicating that he was already aware. It continued, saying, "All of you are already aware, the being that you all fear the most and worship." Enoch asked if it was the god of death, and the entity confirmed and said, "That's right, the beginning and the end of life, the roots of a plant that bears fruit, and the harvester of that fruit." It then pointed at Enoch's breastplate and said he was wearing something quite troublesome. He asked Enoch if he was afraid of death and if he thought that the item would protect him from death. Enoch asked if it was really the one who harvests the fruit of life. The god of death explained, "Life starts from the roots and sprouts its branches. At the end, it bears fruit. That fruit represents death. And as the one who has determined that the fruit born from life is death, I am the harvester of that fruit." Enoch was bewildered by this explanation. The god of death said that the fruits they all bear are immensely delicious and appetizing, and he urged Enoch to keep bearing his fruit, bringing more and more to him. He then promised to show Enoch something interesting. Suddenly, Enoch found himself in a memory. He saw his father kneeling over a dead wolf, remarking that wolves shouldn't be in that area. Enoch said it was his first time seeing a wolf in real life. His father explained that the area wasn't usually inhabited by wolves and wondered how it arrived there to die. Enoch felt bad for it, but his father laughed, saying it was only because it was dead. He told Enoch that he wouldn't have the same thought if he encountered a live wolf and advised him to either run away or kill it if he ever did. The scene shifted to darkness, and Enoch saw a knight standing there. Surprised, he dashed towards the knight, calling him a bastard. His mother then appeared and told him that he should have ran away. She said he should have done so without a second thought. Enoch started apologizing to his mother for being the only survivor and for not being able to do anything. As he kept saying sorry, the scene faded into darkness again, leaving him with the wolf. Enoch wondered what was going on. He then shouted at the god of death, asking what it was showing him and what it was doing. Another voice called out to Enoch. As he turned, the person said she was glad he's alive. Before he could see who it was, he regained consciousness. He saw Emma telling him to wake up as she had something to tell him. She said she found a place for him to stay and that a carriage would come for him in a couple of days. Apologizing for the sudden turn of events, she mentioned that something urgent had come up. Enoch asked about his mother, and Emma placed a hand on his shoulder, reminding him that she had promised to find a place for him. She instructed him to take the carriage to Sir Conrad's castle and said she would write a letter to Sir Conrad so he could stay there. A little girl interrupted, asking if Enoch was all right. Emma called her in and told her to take care of him. She expressed regret over their sudden split, but assured him that he would manage. She then told him that they would meet again as long as they were still alive. After Emma's ambiguous words, she left. Enoch went to the basement again in search of the cursed one to ask about the harvester, but he couldn't ask anything in the end. Several days passed, and Enoch boarded the carriage that would take him to Conrad's castle. The scene switched to the knight who had saved Enoch. He was standing with a witch named Bina and asked her where she had brought him. She told him that this was Tav Castle, the place where war begins. She explained that it was a castle the White Bird looked over, but soon the castle would fall. In order to prevent war, the White Bird tried to protect the castle at the crossroads of the continent. Eventually, the castle would fall, the crossroads would be penetrated, and war would begin. The knight seemed surprised to hear that a castle protected by the White Bird would fall. Bina said it was because there had been a change. During negotiations, an experienced witch on the other side noticed the absence of a particular witch. Bina explained that the witch had left the White Bird because of a young boy, and as a result of her absence, the castle would fall. She had to leave because she found what she really needed to do. The knight asked what happened to the boy, and Bina said he would be in the care of an old man in a remote area. The knight guessed it must be Conrad and said he must write a letter as he would become quite busy preparing for war. Bina noted that a lot of work awaited them and that due to the tragedy that had befallen one young boy, everything had begun. We switch scenes and see Enoch and Emily riding in a carriage. Enoch asked her why she came along, and she replied that she wanted to learn about the world as well. The scene then shifts to Enoch standing in front of an old man. Enoch explained that he lost his family, but the old man cut him off, saying he wasn't interested in that and wanted to know why he should care for him. Enoch said that Emma sent him, but the man asked who Emma was. Emily intervened, explaining that Emma was a witch from the Blue Spider House who sent them there, and asked if the man had received the message. The old man retorted, questioning why he should listen to that tomboyish witch's request. Enoch bowed, but the old man dismissed it, saying it wouldn't change anything. Enoch then told him that he shall take his leave, and he walked out of the room. The old man was surprised that Enoch really left. We now see Enoch sitting by a campfire, thinking that he wouldn't die, but him not being able to die isn't enough. He needed to learn how to fight. Wolves then started to approach him from the forest. Meanwhile, the old man ordered his people to search the area, advising them to avoid danger and escape if they encountered fearsome beasts. He asked Emily if Enoch had really entered the woods alone, and she confirmed, noting it had been a while since he entered the woods and he still hasn't returned. The old man thought Enoch should know about the beasts in the woods, yet he was still wandering in the dark. One of the searchers shouted that there was something at the bottom of a cliff. The old man rushed to check and was surprised as he found Enoch on the ground with a dead wolf on top of him. Conrad thought that Enoch must be crazy. Conrad later spoke to Enoch, questioning if he really wanted to die that badly since he stayed in the woods late into the night, even knowing there were wolves and that too barehanded. Enoch replied that he had a dagger on him. Conrad sarcastically remarked that he was thoroughly prepared and called himself a fool for not noticing. He then accused Enoch of not caring since he couldn't die and doing something so foolish because he wore that pathetic breastplate. Enoch admitted Conrad was right, explaining that even if he were being ripped apart by wolves, he wouldn't die and would end up winning by stabbing them with his dagger. Conrad chuckled, mocking Enoch's bravado despite his recent pathetic display. Enoch retorted that he was running his mouth because he won and survived. Conrad sighed, and after a moment of silence, Enoch bowed and wished Conrad good night. Conrad shouted for Enoch to wait. Enoch asked what he wanted from him. Conrad asked what he intended to do now. Enoch said he would go back to the woods, but Conrad told him to shut up. After another silent moment, Enoch stood there patiently. Then Conrad remarked that he seemed to have a troublesome one in his possession now. He asked Enoch if he knew how to read and write or if he had any skills in hunting or farming. Enoch was confident he could figure something out. Conrad realized they had a long road ahead. We now see Conrad writing a letter, noting the nation's instability due to the war. He mentions that their location on the outskirts makes it hard to see the impact firsthand. But it's clear the issue won't be resolved easily. Conrad reflects that it has been 2 years since Enoch arrived. Although Emma occasionally sent mail, it has been a long time since they last heard from her. In this time, Conrad has taught Enoch everything he could. He taught him how to farm, how to hunt, and even taught him how to interact with girls. In one scene, a girl runs away, apologizing for fangirling over Enoch. Conrad asks what he said to her, and Enoch replies that he told her he was in the middle of training and she should stop bothering him. The letter continues, with Conrad writing that Enoch's results were not particularly great in most areas, but he has grown into a respectable 16-year-old. Conrad notes that Enoch is getting excellent results in a certain field. We now see Conrad instructing Enoch during sword practice, advising him to utilize the weight of the sword and keep his movements fluid, transitioning smoothly from defense to offense. As they spar, Conrad wins the duel, and Enoch admits his defeat. Conrad asks if Enoch really believes he lost, suggesting that with his body, he could have continued attacking even after being stabbed. Enoch responds, saying that 2 years ago, he couldn't accomplish anything even though he fought with the intention of dying. Conrad continued writing his letter, expressing his lack of confidence in convincing Enoch to live a normal life. He noted that even though Enoch is now a teenager, he's still very young. Conrad mentioned that when he advised Enoch to live like a normal person, worrying only about how to put food on the table, Enoch wouldn't even respond and would just wallow in his thoughts. He added that there was nothing he could do about Enoch's stubbornness. Still, Conrad acknowledged that Enoch has a place where he could be useful as a squire. Despite everything, Enoch has not forgotten the knight's words telling him to become one, and he's waiting for the knight to call him. We now see a letter from the knight addressed to Conrad. It read, "It's a relief that you are unable to experience the chaos of the war with your own 2 eyes. After Tav Castle fell, the nations that were secretly desiring war rose up in arms, and the whole continent was engulfed in conflict. There are also those who are struggling and fighting to put an end to this chaotic war." We then see the knight fighting alongside a witch named Dana. He asked her to cast a spell which allowed him to slash through incoming rocks. The letter continued, stating that the knight was working together with the white birds, had been running from place to place. The knight noticed an old man on a horse, and Dana informed the knight that the kingdom of Malkuth demolished Tav Castle, and that the king of Malkuth was on the hill. Surprised to see the king himself, the knight told Dana to make a path for him so he could follow the king. As the knight rode forward, his horse was hit with an arrow, causing him to fall. The king turned to the knight and accused him of being impudent for leaving the battlefield to chase a prize. The knight implored the king to recall his soldiers, saying too much blood had been shed. The king dismissed the knight's plea, calling it petty, and instructed him to follow him into the caverns where he had something to show him. The knight questioned if the king intended to cover the nation's ground with blood, and pointed out that there was nothing left to gain through fighting. He urged the king to end the war and present his demands. The king retorted that he alone decides what is to be gained or not, and scoffed at the knight's speech. He hinted that his message lay within the caverns, suggesting the knight might understand, given that he bore armor. The king then inquired if the knight knew about the harvester. Receiving no response, the king revealed that the harvester had made its presence known in the land. The knight, reacting swiftly, slashed at the king. As the strike connected, the knight expressed disbelief that a dignified king had become a slave of death. The king retorted, asking if everyone hadn't become slaves of death. He then spoke of a tree that grows upside down, nourished by blood, whose roots, when they reach for the sky, herald the harvester's manifestation in the land. He declared that the god of death would come and, for the roots to grow, there must be death. The knight was taken aback by this revelation. The letter continued, with the knight expressing relief that Conrad was not witnessing the war's chaos firsthand. He compared the war to a tidal wave crashing across the sand, swallowing everything whole. The knight requested Conrad to prepare for his arrival, mentioning his need to find Emma as well. The letter concluded with a request for Conrad to send Enoch to him, as the knight needed to confirm what Enoch had seen. Switching back to Enoch, who was riding on a horse, we see the moment before he set off on his journey. Conrad advised him to find the knight and serve him faithfully as a squire. Enoch asked if he was going alone, and Conrad jokingly asked if Enoch wanted his own personal squire. He reassured Enoch that as long as he kept a good head on his shoulders, traveling alone wouldn't be difficult. He instructed Enoch to stay focused, not get distracted, and to follow the map exactly. Later, Conrad and Emily discussed Enoch's journey. Emily expressed concern about whether Enoch could make it on his own. Conrad, sensing her worry, asked if she wanted to accompany Enoch. Emily admitted she considered it, but was more concerned that Enoch might obsessively search for ways to kill the cursed knights and engage in fights if he encountered one. Conrad fell silent, contemplating her words. We then see Enoch, determined, thinking that the first thing he needs to do is find out the whereabouts of the X-marked knight.